I can start, right?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, and aspiring entrepreneurs, good afternoon and welcome to this online session hosted by Satna Incubation Center. I am Akhilendra, your host for today's event. It's pleasure to have you all joining us in our virtual space, and we are going into a crucial aspects of entrepreneurship, key licensing required to begin a business in India. In our pursuit of knowledge and growth, we have the privilege of having a distinguished keynote speaker, Ruby Pratap Singh, Incubation Manager at FTBI NIT Raukela, who will share invaluable insight and expertise on this important subject. Starting a business in India can be a complex process, but understanding the essential license and permit is a fundamental step. Throughout this session, we will learn about the legal requirement and regulation that entrepreneurs need to navigate and the critical role these licenses play in ensuring a business success and compliance. So, without further ado, let's extend our warm welcome to our esteemed speaker, Ruby Pratap Singh. As we embark on this journey to unlock the secret of business licensing in India, thank you for being here and let's make the session informative and enriching. Uh, a very warm welcome again on the behalf of Satna Incubation Center Ruby, and now stage is over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I will update my details. What I am, where do I work, and what we work on. So I'm Ruby, as mentioned, and I work with Social Alpha currently. It's a it's a it's a platform where we scout for technologies based on science and innovations that addresses the major issues of social, economical, and environmental importance. So we work in three different verticals, that is climate and sustainability, energy and climate and energy, sorry, health and wellness, and livelihood and prosperity. So each sector has its own specific set of areas where the team has expertise to work upon. What kind of problems we are trying to focus, what are the solutions we are expecting, are defined in each of these three areas. So I belong to the livelihoods and prosperity team, as my educational background has been in agriculture. So I love to work with the agritech innovations, startups and innovators, individual entrepreneurs as well. My journey has been in this space from the very beginning of my career. I started in 2016 with AIDEA NAM, National Academy of Agriculture Research Management in Hyderabad. I was a part of that team, and then I moved on to FTBI NIT Rourkela for a small stint of time, and now I'm in Social Alpha. It's an part of Tata Trust entity that we work with, and we leverage that power to make an impact in the society. In this entire journey, I have learned multiple different stages of startups, and each startup has its own journey. Starting with a very early stage with an idea with a very frugal idea, till the startup that goes towards the scale up stage. And the topic of the day, that is the understanding company registration and other licensing for different types of business, is very important. And there are certain basic registration process or documentation that a company is supposed to have, or is a compulsory part of their journey to have it as a part of part of their compliances. Why are these important? This gives a name to the company, this gives an credibility to the company. This also helps the incubators and investors in the ecosystem to trust the startup or a company as an entity. This also helps you get recognized in the ecosystem. by Startup India, Invest India. There are multiple other state-wise innovation centers that helps you to get recognized in that, and allows you to enter to multiple funding opportunities and showcasing opportunities that the state governments and the national government might have. Right. So the very basic that a startup or an innovator should have, we will start with that. There are other critical documentation processes are also there, but we that becomes important when you enter into a one-to-one discussion stage or mentorship with any of the incubator or investors. They will help you out with the other documentations as well. But very basic necessities that we have is listed herein, that includes registration of companies, the PAN and TAN details, GST registration, Udyog Aadhaar registration. There are certain shop and establishment licensing acts and other licensing. There are certain other registration as well that needs to be done. Registration, by registration of company, we mean, uh, so if I have to describe or define a startup in a term that we use in Startup India dictionary or a book, then a startup has to be under 10 years age. It should not be over 100 crores of revenue, and it should have registered under the Companies Act of 2013. This is a clear three step definition of a startup to be liable to call as a startup in the ecosystem, in Indian ecosystem basically. So they has to make themselves registered uh, under any of the entity. It might be a private limited company, it may be a public limited company, it may be a one partners company, it's a OPC, or a limited liability company. So depending on the nature of your activity, you can definitely consult your mentors or experts who are there in terms of compliance registration. They can help you out. So each of this type of registration has its own uh, to's and fro's. The best part you have is the private limited registration. That is where you have a entity, and that gives a trust to anybody in the ecosystem. The single person company, uh, although are considered as startup, but going forward, when your company grows, when your company starts making higher revenue, it would need to be registered under private limited. So it is always defined, it is always suggested to get the private limited registration done at the very beginning. That will cost a little higher, yet that is the important thing that you can close out at the beginning of your startup registration itself. Once you are done, there are certain
Ruby. I had a question at this point that suppose the startup registered as a one-person company initially, but after
right.
sometime he feels that his company is growing, and he restructured his company to a private limited company. So, is there any challenges he have to face by restructuring this company, or that's a feasible thing he can do to start his startup journey?
That can be done. Most of the startups, because of the constraint of funds, they do start with a LLP, which is the LLP or partnership forms, which is a very nominal and the easiest process to start with. But eventually, when they start getting attraction and start growing their business, they do turn to private limited. There is no challenge in doing that. It is just a little financial compliances that will they have to move their balance sheets, their P&L account, which they used to maintain, might be not so in an organized way. They have to maintain it and move it to the private limited company. The rest, all terms and conditions remains the same as it is. So there is no
And one
challenge in
more
doing.
thing, and one more thing that this restructuring of the company will also consider that startup as in startup by DPID na,
Yes,
in
yes,
10
of course,
years.
definitely. Yes, yes. Within the 10-year of interval, anything happens, the structure will not change. They will still be recognized under Startup India as the DPIIT ministry. They will be considered. They will be given a license certificate for that. So when they get to private limited, there are certain more documentation that are related. So that is little tedious task, but that is more preferred. So there is an article of association that needs to be prepared. There is a memorandum of association that defines all your activities, what the company intends to do. That again, with the help of your CA or CS, can be defined and worked out. So this is the very first step for any startup to take for a to be called as a startup or a entity, basically. So once you are registered, you are eligible to get a certificate from the DPIIT Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They Your startup get enlisted in their website as well. Your details gets enlisted. Anybody who wants to verify or validate that your existence, your formation date, your details, your address is mentioned in the MCA website as well. um, uh, so registration is a process first step. I'll not get into the rest. I'll just moving on to the next one. uh, Process or registration of the company procedure. You have to, there is a online process as well, but mostly it will be helpful if you take a help of the CA. They will be guiding you with all the, because defining a memorandum of association and article of association is somewhere the startups or the early stage innovators might get stuck. So you have to be very careful what kind of business are you entering into and what you want to define it on the paper. Because MOA change and AOA change do happens earlier, but that is again a tedious task. So be very careful while you do a private limited registration, and while you define your article and memorandum of associations. You need to be very careful what are the activities, who are the partners, who are the directors, who will be the shareholders, what percentage of share is being taken by whom. This all definition has to be there. In other company registrations, like I said, partnership form or OPC form or limited liability, it's hardly a agreement process where you go to a lawyer. You have a detailed agreement done between you and the partners, if there are any. So what are the terms and conditions that you guys wants to work together, those are mentioned. It's on a I believe it's on a 100 rupees court paper. You have to do it and get it signed with all this basic documentation, your ID proof and all. So once you create that, the registration happens officially. uh, mm, Once your registration is done, you can then apply for your PAN and TAN number. PAN is a permanent account number that gets allocated in your company's name. uh, like we have similarly, we have our own individual identity number. As a person, company also has a personal identity number that we call it as PAN and TAN, which is a very important document for all your finance related activities. So unless you have it, you cannot do any financial transactions going ahead. You cannot do a third party vendor payment. You cannot get your purchases done in the name of the company. Any GST applicability you cannot do. PAN is important because that also helps the government to track the activities and your revenue process. So that also helps you to be exposed to a lot of other investors in the ecosystem who may be interested to offer any funding opportunities to you. So PAN and TAN can also again be in the you can apply it on the website itself. They have their entire process journey. It's a very easy process. You can apply it. It takes time to get the PAN detail, but you can do it online itself. GST is again one of the very important document. It's a Goods and Service Tax Act that we have launched, and any startup who has turned, who has crossed the revenue of 40 lakhs, is mandatory to do a GST registration. um, Startups from the very beginning can do the GST registration, but while issuing the invoices, GST is applicable if they are in more than 40 lakhs of revenue. Because while your financial year auditing will happen, GST will be a compulsory document to understand and to file your income tax return on in the name of your company. So this has to be done in place every year, once you are crossing the limit, or even if you are not, if you have registered it as your company, you should have it as a, a document in your books without any delay. So that also helps you again with, so when you go to the investors, these are very basic documents for the very initial discussion, that these are in place or not. If these are not in place, it takes a lot of other time to delay the investments as well, wherein the investors might back out or might not be willing to invest if the founders or entrepreneurs do not have these basic documents in place. MSME registration is also again, this is uh, we don't say it's as a compulsory document immediately, but it is good to have good to have a document with you, because again, this is again a government of India guidelines that MSME licensing is also important if we are doing any kind of manufacturing product or service based solution that you are offering to any of your customers. If you are MSME registered startup, that helps makes your process much easier for this vendor release in terms of your government activities. If you are in the gem portal, there is a portal where you can go and register yourself. You must have this MSME and GST certificate both. So again, this certificates are easy to apply. There are on the website, you can go and fill on your details, and it will take hardly 15-20 days to get the certifications to your email box. Shop and establishment act licensing, I would this are very specific documentations for certain kind of businesses, and that also will define what kind nature is your business. Based on that, this is purely done. There are conditions, terms and conditions for this licensing, for this act. You have to consult to your lawyers in what will be the terms and conditions to create this document at least. So we have, in our startups, we do vendor registration license as well, where we do not want to establish anything ourselves, but we want the third party to come in. So there is an agreement that we put in place so that don't get into this licensing act, because this is little bit of a act wherein you have to prove your activities, wherein you have to give all your documents very clearly to justify the need of this license. So this goes a little higher in the step. When you are very clear on the need of this kind of license, you should consult your lawyer and get this license done as well. Few other licensing and registrations act that are important. If you are into any kind of food processing or any type of consumable activities, then FSSI licensing is must. That you can also apply through the online. There is a process, the process is clearly defined. You need to have your basic ID proofs and company documentations, also about the products what you are willing to license for. The once you fill in the details, the licensing, once they validate, you will get it in your invoice as well. There are certain pollution control board, Reserve Bank of India licenses. There are SEBI. These I would say is a little higher, on a higher side documentation. But all the previous documents that we had discussed is really important for the startups to have it, to must have it. There is always a good to have and need to, must to have it, need to have the of documents, and all the previous documents we are supposed to have it in place. So I'll also help you with what are the stages when you get stuck. So, company registration, the startups don't get stuck. It's a very easy process. Once anybody in the, if you are connected with any of the expert or mentor who have worked in ecosystem, can help you with that. Or the incubators like Satna Incubation Center or the other centers that can definitely help you out with the process. They have their in-house expertise as well. When it comes to the bookkeepings, in financial audit every year is a must for a startup. Even if you are an LLP or a partnership firm, it is a mandate for the startups to keep the compliances in place. That helps you to gain the trust of any funding body, may it be of government, may it be a grantee, may it be a equity investors. It is very important to have a compliances, the financial compliances in place. By that I mean a proper cash flow statement, a balance sheet, and P&L account, which has to be audited every year. You make it internally as a quarterly document, and you get it audited internally. But every year, however old you are, you get it done from a professional PA, so that it gives a you. If you are an invested company, you will definitely have to provide these documents to your investor. If you are not an investee company, you have to give, if you are willing, if you are willing to raise fund from the market. So this is again an important part. uh, there are certain other documentation. If you are a partnership company, the partners agreement is very important. uh, the terms and conditions between the partners, and what who the activities of the role and activities of each partners are important to be defined on a paper, and signed by both of this in witness of two each of the partners should have two witnesses to be signed. That also again is, even if it's a private limited company, it is necessary. Within the co-founders, they should have this co-founders agreement, that while we do investment, we take this, we should have it as a document in yours. And it can be refined as and when the terms and condition changes. For example, if the co-founder says, I don't want to be actively participating in the activities of the company, and I don't want to hold so much of equity in the company, so the co-founders agreement has to clearly define and keep updating as and when the terms changes. There is a ESOP policy, employee stock exchange option. That is again an important documentation or a process for a startup. Although we don't say it in a very early stage to have it, but it is good to have it, because that also gives a confidence for the founders as well as the investors, to keep your employees, your trusted employees, a part of your share to them, for them, so that they can hold on to the company for a long, and you do not face the manpower issue. Even if they even if they are willing, you should have something to offer, because they are your team members who are contributing. They should have something in return, so that they stick to your company, they are loyal to your company. So this again is an important document. I can go on, I would love to go on with other documents. We do have a checklist for all of this before even we incubate or invest. I can have a detailed session sometime later. But yeah, I'll stop here for any questions so far that the audience may have.
Thank you, Ruby. Just one simple question that the viewers maybe want to know: that what are the common challenges and pitfalls that entrepreneurs often encounter when dealing with business licensing in India?
Oh, there are a lot. Uh, because licenses, challenges. See, any government process has its own timelines. So, although we have moved on from the paperworks to digital India, and that has made a life much simpler than before. But still, it takes time, and it's only the timeline that it might get stuck. Other than that, I don't think, as on date, registration process or formation of a company is a challenge to any startup. That confidence is there. They have made it easier. It will take time, it might take more than a month, but and few follow-ups by the entrepreneurs that what has happened to my application for some pan registration or tan registration. But it gets done if all the documentation that they have asked is clearly given to them, provided while applying. There, rather than that, I don't think there is any challenge for a startup to get these licenses done, unless they are very critical. Like there are certain other very critical, FSSI licensing is a little critical, because that comes under a safety security licensing, and they take time. They take their own time to do the trials, processes, and done. That takes time. But if you are if your back end process and back end license clarity is there in documentation, that will get resolved as well.
Okay, so I think that's the only question came in my mind from the viewer's point of view. And thank you again, Ruby, for your valuable time and expertise you gave to the Satna Incubation Center. And it's privilege and gratitude from whole team of Satna Incubation Center for coming this online session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here and share my experience. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Vansa.
Thank you so much. Bye.